Welcome to MSP Unplugged's Emerging Vendor Series. I'm your host, Paco Lebron. Join us for the new series highlighting ConnectWise PitchIT contestants as we highlight an emerging vendor who is changing the game and making a big impact in this MSP space. But before we bring on our guest today, we want to go ahead and talk about one of my favorite things, and that is TechCon Unplugged. TechCon Unplugged will be in Woodbridge, New Jersey, September 7th to the 10th at Delta Hotels Woodbridge. Join us for an evening mixer as we then kick off 2.5 days of content to help you better your business, save money, save time, and most importantly, improve services. This is a show for any size IT solution provider, as mentioned in many of the intros of our other shows. So whether you're an emerging MSP or you're a veteran in the space, this is the place for you. Tickets are on sale for our second tier of pricing at $299, which will end at the end of this month of June. If you're watching this in June, if you are watching after June, I apologize. The only way you're going to get a better price if you join us on our online community group, which you will hear in many of our other episodes. But head over to techconunplugged.com if you are still in June. Pick up your ticket today, and we look forward to seeing you there. All right. You know what time it is, folks, for this Thursday's episode. We're going to introduce one of my favorite guest hosts, is what we've go ahead and confirmed in yesterday's episode. If you haven't watched it, go ahead and take a look at it. We have none other than Mr. Sean Lardo, Economy Evangelist over at ConnectWise. Sean, how are you today, my friend?
You know, I'm great, Paco. Thanks for asking. How are you today?
You know, I'm going to steal the line from my friend Rick Smith. If I'd be doing any better, it'd be a sin.
It's a good line because denial is the first sign.
That's also true.
And ignorance is definitely bliss. And,
that is also true.
And I appreciate the fact that you actually were able to come back and say favorite guest co-host. I really appreciate that too. Yes.
Hey, once it's established, we got to make sure that that's bond, my friend. But most importantly, I want to go ahead and introduce our guest today. We have lost the button there, but I didn't forget the name. That is Matthew Fisch, right? Matthew.
So wait, we didn't have this conversation. If Sean's getting royalties, do I get royalties?
No, it depends how big of a check is coming. Anyway, so as I introduced it is Matthew Fisch over at founding CEO over at Fort Mesa. Matthew, hopefully I said your last name properly there.
You got it.
Awesome. Perfect. Matthew, appreciate you taking out the time on this group of yokels as we have here. We like to try and have a little bit of fun as we're talking about on the show, but most importantly, we do want to make sure we highlight your business and kind of what you're doing for the MSP space. But before we go into Fort Mesa, I would love to go ahead and hear a little bit more about what you have going on, your origin story, before how you came into Fort Mesa.
Sure. So I come from a long, illustrious journey with IT providers. You know, as the MSP term came about, as cybersecurity became a field. And, you know, my practice was helping MSPs with cybersecurity. And around 2016, 2017, 2018, realized that, what was required were easier tools. The incumbent tools in the industry for cybersecurity, those specialized point tools were built for large enterprise. They required enormous teams, high burdens on training and specialized skills, and frankly, the MSP industry they need to start running now. So Fort Mesa is part of a generation of tools that's really built to make cybersecurity easier. And what I mean by that is taking this specialized field that's half actuarial science and translating that to something that your average IT geek can pick up and run with and deliver with a customer. Where we're really focused is on the sales workflows. How do we communicate with our customer in a way that is going to encourage them to invest in cybersecurity? How are we going to deliver that over time? How are we going to remain profitable with those cybersecurity delivery contracts? And then of course, how are we going to prove it when Mr. Insurance Man comes knocking? So that's where we're at and what we're doing. And then of course I've run into Mr. Lardo here, who's running the great ecosystem over inside the PitchIT ConnectWise team.
Yeah, that's me. That's what I do for a living at this point. But it's a little bit of cat, wrangling, But no, it's actually fun working with you guys. And I want to dive into something with you real quick here because you mentioned compliance, you mentioned cybersecurity insurance. These are all the most difficult words in the cybersecurity space at this point. It's not creating magnificent tools that protect, or it's none of that stuff now. That's become like second nature, where compliance and insurance have become like the new frontier. Even though compliance itself has been around. So, can you talk about how you insure this and where you belong in the what's the word I'm looking for? Journey of this.
Sure. I'm gonna put a pin on that really quick.
Yeah.
I know that we have one of your colleagues here in the green room, Tim. Do we want to go ahead and throw him in to dive into?
Oh
the
yeah, that's great.
Right. So let's go ahead and introduce Tim. Tim,
Awesome.
Is it Schnurr? Is it how you pronounce your last name?
You nailed it.
Awesome.
Thank you. So I was on another. We have a weekly educational, basically podcast with another PitchIT competitor, Tim Golden from Compliance Risk IO. So Sean was just talking. I was in the green room. I could hear you talking about it's the new frontier. It's very difficult. Insurance, compliance. And it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge for us to basically lift all tides and get more MSPs to understand this so that they can basically position themselves to sell it and deliver it in terms of, to satisfy either compliance or insurance. So we have this weekly, and we just ran it a little bit over every Friday, just talking about these things. We like to call it, he calls it shift left, right? There's a right of boom and there's left of boom, and compliance is a lot about just doing things to proactively to basically protect the organization. So we like to, we really like to get that out there and get the message out there. So, and then Fort Mesa is just another tool that we're just a SaaS tool trying to make things easier for the MSP so that they can make money, but also take risk off the table.
So don't you sort of go on both sides of left and right of boom then? If you think about it, right?
So we are equal parts sort of technical intelligence about, well, what is security? What are the 100 things you need to do? Or in the case of a really high security system, what are the 400 things you need to be doing from a practice and procedure and product perspective to really be highly mature in cybersecurity? And a lot of that stuff is left of boom. And a lot of that stuff's right of boom. Now, right of boom is, of course, after the proverbial excrement, hits the fan. What do you do?
Left is proactive, and you're setting the standards, right?
Right. But just like an enterprise, right? In an enterprise, right of boom is all about reducing the cost of a loss that's already occurred, right? And within an MSP, there's a similar, left-right thing. Right of boom with an MSP, you're not making money off of that. You're just stopping the customer from bleeding, right? If they're dead on the sidewalk, they're not going to pay your bill next month, right? But those left of boom interventions, those are all security investments. Those are investments that an MSP is positioned to deliver. A lot of it is, have you configured things accurately? Have you arranged your security landscape so that you've got a left wall and a right wall and a front door, and you haven't left the back window open? And we help with that. And our GRC product specifically is built for MSPs to take into their environments and to work with their existing teams. But then, we do have a vulnerability management play, also left of boom. And that's all about, again, closing up those new software vulnerabilities that had just been discovered before an attacker can break in.
So in other words, you can help in the wide range of the boomstick, and being able to have from left of boom and right of boom, you have this pretty much taken care of for any IT solution provider can really engage with Fort Mesa to help improve their cybersecurity hygiene.
There's a lot of guidance. So there's guidance, right? There's and it's great. All the evangelists and people that speak at ConnectWise conferences, like ConnectWise, IT Nation Secure last week, all these great individuals like Paxate, some of the names out there are talking about CIS controls, and we're the ones that it's going to make it a lot easier than just going on the CIS control site and reading them and then trying to implement them. Sure. We have the guidance, like a lot of GRC is really just about planning, orchestrating the people to do it, and then documenting it so that you can prove it, as Sean said, to insurance applications. So that's really what the product does. And we also, a lot of GRC products are just for like HIPAA or CMMC, which is the DoD like standard. And we're actually just like trying to make it simplify. We'll make it smaller, so like you could cut down and only do some of the controls and not all the controls. So you can map that, and that's another thing these evangelists are always talking about. Map your stack to CIS, and that's exactly what we do, right? So like you go in and they're like, oh yeah, we use AD, we use Microsoft AD for this, and we use, I can just kind of hit the whole vendor floor, right? Sean, Huntress and CyberQT, and like all these popular names, right? CyberFox, right? That basically are filling those roles, but you have to map them and you have to evidence that. Right. So this really the evidence is great, but it also credentials the MSP to their customers, saying like, oh wow, these guys really have their act together. Like they've got everything evidenced, and like they're using these frameworks, and it helps them measure themselves like against their peers, and so that's
the mapping, but also the informing the client. When our partners take our sales workflows out to their end customers, small and medium-sized businesses, they're not talking about Huntress and SentinelOne, like, don't you want this SentinelOne SKU instead of that SentinelOne SKU? It's $3 more. Doesn't that sound better? With our tool, you can, whether you're using CIS, and you've got IG1, IG2, IG3 for security levels, or you use NIST, and there's, low, medium, high. In Australia, they've got this 7 stair-step approach. Really show the customer like this is the level we're selling you. And the reason we're selling you at this level is because some standards organization or some nonprofit or some government says that all organizations that describe you are supposed to be at this level. And so when the customer says, well, why am I spending that much, that extra $3 for that SentinelOne SKU, you say, well, that's because you need that SKU to be on this level. And it really changes the nature of the sales process for those security investments.
So here's my question for you both. I'm an MSP. I know exactly what you're talking about as far as IG1, IG2, and IG3. Hell, my plans are geared toward IG1, IG2, and IG3, and we brand them Essentials, Essentials Plus, and Essentials Plus Custom because of compliance and whatever. Why is it taking so many damn years for us to stack and map the stack to compliances? Why is there no like, you would think that in my brain, the RMM would be the ideal place, or where the PSA to help. Hey, this is this with it, to help with that guidance. Why does it take someone like you all to kind of come to market? And I'm sure it's probably the whole reason why you come to market is because no one is doing this. Like, why is it so hard to map this stack? Oh, no, and this is you've triggered me. So, and Sean's laughing because he knows I don't get at this unless we're in person. So why is that so hard? Why is it that these vendors and or the stacks where they say, hey, you have to make sure you check out right of boom. Hey, you got to make sure you've inventory and do all this sort of deal. And you hear the tool saying, hey, we will check that box, but not 3 of the sub check boxes of 1.3 and 1.7 for inventory. So why is it so hard to do that? And why has it been needed for you all to kind of step into that place to help fulfill that gap?
Matt, you want me to take that one first? So two things I know. So there's not enough cybersecurity experts. So we need engineers like the people on your team, Paco, to like do the work. So they do need a little bit of guidance. The other thing is this like traditional business model of an MSP is to charge per endpoint or per seat per month, right? So like, how am I going to make money on this, right? Like this is a lot of work. It's a lot of human hours. It's a lot of interviewing the customer and sitting down. So like, you kind of have to spread that work out over like a year, 2 years. And that's basically what the GRC thing does. It basically plans that all out. True to form, as you said, PSAs, RMMs can do this, and hopefully they'll acquire Fort Mesa someday in the future, right? Like while we're talking exits, right?
ConnectWise, listening.
ConnectWise. Matt, go ahead. But
yeah, I mean, that's a huge piece of it. But there's the subtext here is that it's even possible to have an RMM do it all, and it's just not. It's possible. Okay. It's possible to automate some of security, and some of security is always going to be people and processes. There is no automated system that you can invent to secure things that a smart person couldn't work around. So you need other smart people to make sure you're stopping them. There's a lot of people in process. You're never going to use software to automate all of security. This is a good thing for the MSP industry, because if it was all automatable, first of all, it would probably already be done. And secondly, you guys wouldn't be making any money off of it. It would just be some SKU you're selling for like $1 markup, right? But actually right now, and technology disruption comes in waves, right? And right now the disruption is compliance, security, trust in information systems, and proving it. And as the MSP, there's a financial incentive to be that trusted advisor and lead the customer through this disruption. And one final thing, honestly, the standards 5 years ago were horrible. They're getting really good. And our science of security has really matured to the point where the guidance out there is good. There are roadmaps you can follow. And it's like 200 stops along the path, but those roadmaps didn't even exist 5 years ago. So, I mean, 5 years ago, it was all theory and lists of controls, no specific order. Oh, let's do a quantitative risk assessment with an auditor and a 4,000-page report and like heat map your way through a process that'll take 11 months to figure out where your security was 11 months ago, and and that's where things were 5 years ago. And they're still that way in large enterprise. But in MSP space, I mean, things are charging ahead, moving at the speed of business, right? And so we need tools that can really move as fast as people can move their way through projects to repivot towards the next security action.
No, that makes total sense. And sorry to derail the conversation. I want to bring us back to obviously for the PitchIT side.
No, Paco, you're doing well. You're doing well, Paco. Just keep being triggered over there. No, but I'm glad you did that though, because really this is what this is all about, was for these guys to hear this, right?
Right.
Because this is exactly what business owners are thinking. And Tim and I had this conversation last year when I was like, I didn't know what you guys really did. I just knew you did some compliance stuff, right? And I said, so tell me exactly. And he broke it down. I was like, okay, so, and I'm pretty good at getting simple things, and it was very complex. And I'm saying this for the reason what Matthew just said. 5 years ago, it's funny that 5 years ago these benchmarks weren't in place, these roadmaps weren't in place. However, we've been talking about GDPR, we've been talking about SOC 2, we've had all those things that have all been established years ago. So why is it that when they were building this out, why has that not been a conversation? What was the catalyst for it? Was it the migration to digitalization because of COVID? Because that was huge. Is that what prompted it finally? Because I feel like these things existed, just they were very very sporadic. They were very decentralized.
Well, I've been in the trenches for a while. And I'm crawling forward here, and like an insurer pops out on my left, right? A new standard pops out on my right, and that's the way it's been going for years, right? But the really big thing that's
massive, right? Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, well, the insurance companies have been struggling over and over to figure out how to make money on their cyber insurance business, and some of them are going to claim they figured it out. They still haven't figured it out. They're getting better at not losing money, I'll tell you that. And the way they're doing it is just simply not insuring people. And so now you go in to get insurance, and they're like, you're not insurable unless, and there's like giant list of compliance requirements, right? But what the real difference is, and why now? Why now Fort Mesa? Why now invest in compliance roadmaps that are really specific and tangible? Why use that to drive your whole business and your security sales is simply the world is more informed. And it did take years of GDPR and COPA. And, this morning I'm doing an analysis on Israeli privacy law. It's everywhere, right? Yeah. We implemented like the South American standard, the South African standard a few weeks ago. The whole world's really learning this all at the same time across all industries. And the most important thing for MSPs, your customers, small businesses are picking up the newspaper. They are being informed. They're being informed by their attorneys, by their accountants, by their insurers, by whatever small business conference, whatever event they went to, by the rag that lands on their desk trying to sell them whatever's in their industry, is talking about cyber, and they are being informed. And if your MSP is not speaking that same cyber compliance language, you're just not going to get those dollars. But those end customers will invest in security because they need it.
Well, it's a huge point that you just said, right? It's like we just talked about this yesterday with Phalanx, talking about how we were about the FTC safeguards that just went into effect last Friday. And the point is that, you know, this is something where I just heard from actually one of the contestants in PitchIT, where his MSP, they were actually mentioning how, you know, they did everything that FTC guidelines mentioned, but they weren't doing enough to communicate about it. And as you just mentioned, Matthew, our clients are hearing this from everywhere. And or let me rephrase, they have so many avenues to hear information. If we're not in front of it, they're going to feel that we are either A, not doing anything about it, or B, we don't even know about it ourselves. And how do we become a trusted technology advisor if we're not telling them about it too? And I think it comes to the point where we don't even know what's going on or what it's about as well, because I can tell you, when I heard about FTC guidelines, in my brain, I just kept hearing dealerships. I was like, well, that's a segment that I'm not really worried about. But as someone went ahead and broke it down, and my director of IT ops looked into it, he said, hey, no, we got some clients on this list. We got to get onto it. So, you know, how do you get in front of it? How are the communications? How do you get that? And you hit it right on the head, is that if you're not paying attention, first of all, you have to. And B, if you know about it, you really got to talk about it. Because if you don't, that's how the best way to lose clients is if they feel you don't know or are not communicating about something that seems to be very, very important, they will find someone to do it. Because as you mentioned, they want to invest in their security because of what all the media is probably pushing down to them, is that it's such a scary thing.
Yeah, that divide from big company to small company. So I used to work in big company security. That divide is getting smaller. And this is where we're seeing all these, you know, the CISA directorate and the White House talking about this, and FTC, Paco, like you said, they're all just, everyone's kind of like, we want that. We want better security. We want, you know, so it's a real catalyst and driver here. And the regulators and whoever else writes laws, the rule makers, they're getting smarter. There was for a lot of years, and you know, I've been in security a long time, a lot of like lawyers not speaking to security people when they were writing those security laws. And the laws that would come out the other side would be obtuse. And then the security vendors were writing them.
Maybe. And then a security person would look at the guides, or, you know, Techie Geek would look at the law and say, this isn't even a thing, right? This is impossible to comply with / if I complied with it, it would do nothing for security, right? And so it was really easy to ignore that and dismiss that, and compliance got a bad rep in cybersecurity for a long time because of that. But that's no longer the case. There's sort of there was the law that was before GDPR, and we are in a post-GDPR world now where, and when I mean post-GDPR, I mean lawmakers have started actually following best practices from security people that all agree on what good security is, and they put those into law. And now we all have to follow it.
Yeah, well, you understand why it went that way originally. It was due to large corporations with RFPs that nobody could answer. And as they had to create RFPs, they went to a standardized questionnaire. Like, that's why, I mean, I've done plenty of enterprise RFPs with very large companies that there'll be 45 pages long of questions. 2/3 of them are not even applicable to what I even represented. You know, I mean, up to and including, do you have mop buckets? I'm like, I don't know what that even has to do with it. But the fact is, they throw whatever they can in. You're letting generalization take charge of it. And there was no cybersecurity experts saying, here's what we should be doing, guys. And here's how, and here's why. That wasn't a thing 10 years ago. You know, how many times have you worked with a company that the person making the decision on them being a client of yours when you're selling software was an IT director that had nothing to do with anything you were maybe working on even? They were on the other side of the house. But yet, you know, and what's their requirements? Well, are you an on-prem solution, or are you a software? That was like, do you have permissions? Great. Let me check your security. And really, what were they even checking? Who knows? But again, that's it. It was just a very limited knowledge. It was a very myopic scope of work from them. And there was no way. So there was no forefront leaders of anything in this. And so therefore, you were allowing big companies with people that didn't know exactly what all the ins and outs were to set the precedents, which then government took over with.
Yeah, all really great points for sure. I mean, I think that at this point, which obviously why Fort Mesa is here, right? And so really diving back into the business, you somehow found the PitchIT program, and you're going through that process right now. Can you tell us a little bit about how you found that program and so far how it's been going?
Well, if I rewind a couple of years ago, we were thinking to ourselves during sort of launchish stage when we were just starting out with the partner channel. Wow, we got to connect to this ConnectWise thing. We got to get in that marketplace because our partners, we're talking to our partners, they need, I mean, this is where the security orders need to go to, right? They need to go into the PSA, right? They need to be billed. They need to be trackable, right? They need to be assigned to a technician. So Tim, you signed us up last year, right? And we went through the cohort, and I chimed in once or twice. But you got anything to add about last year?
Yeah, and I think we were early, and I think I mentioned I think I went to a Channel Pro conference last year in March, and the word NIST was never mentioned in any track, and even Sean was like, "I don't know what you guys are doing." I don't know. What are you talking? Risk and compliance, and
I didn't know where you stepped. Where did you belong?
Yeah,
because you used everything, and then I didn't get it. And that again, challenge to the newest this frontier is.
Colin Sapiens says never be early because you can always take market share later, right? Like one of our advisors, and he's right. We were early, and all these things, Paco. All these things are hitting FTC and whatnot. It's shifting this industry, from a tool-heavy cybersecurity basis, and there's a lot of things that people and processes, and that's really what compliance is about. So, the timing, hopefully better. Hopefully we'll.
So we went through PitchIT, and I think we got some, we might have got some partners out of that experience through exposure just like this of our messages last year really resonating with partners and them saying, you're right, I need to actually strategically change the way I'm selling cybersecurity or I'm delivering, or I need to prove this better. And we didn't make it to the final circle last year, but we signed up this year. And as I've been telling everyone, we're going to be number one. So, that's why we signed up again. And, I'm happy for this opportunity to get in front of this great ecosystem of service providers.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. Now, so what would you say that there's any difference from when you ran through it last year to now that you've signed up this year as well?
Well, clearly the whole industry, the industry has matured. From a compliance perspective, our product has matured. But from a PitchIT perspective, I got to say I wasn't involved in the first half of the cohort last year. But certainly, I think we've got some. We've really grown the program here. Is that right, Sean?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we went. You figure prior to last year, even there was about 5 to 6 that would become the 3 finalists, right? Last year we had 18 of you all in it. This year we have 27 in now. We could have put more in. We had to draw a line because I was like, I got to make sure we're scalable. I got to make sure we're giving everybody the right amount of attention because like you had referenced earlier before we got on this is, yeah, I'm on a lot of webinars and live streams now. Actually I was sitting there putting together my calendar and I'm like, okay, vacation, I'm going to take care. Oh, I can't because I have to do these live streams. I'm going to take vacation. Oh, I can't do it here now. So yeah, it is. So we had to make sure we were still scalable for this for you guys to give you guys attention because we are agnostic ourselves, but we have to be very much fortuitous and showcasing you all. We have to make sure you guys all get in and get a chance. Because again, as long as, our goal is to feed you guys, give you guys as much as you can to handle. Hopefully you generate the revenue and grow as a business and stay be a long lasting partner in the ecosystem. So yeah, the program's growing regardless. And next year, God knows, we're already talking about how do we segment off of individual countries, you know,
Nice.
or hemispheres, or what's going to be next, because we have 7 countries represented within the last 2 years that are competing, you know. So as this grows, eventually you're going to see me live streaming over in the freaking UK.
Nice. Now, Matthew, you mentioned that you had received some partners going through the program last year. How is it too easy to work with you all and like jump on, take a look, demo, get on board, becoming a partner over at Fort Mesa? How is that barrier of resistance for them to see what you're all about, and then if they like what they see, join on with the journey?
Well, look, so we launched our channel program early last year. So we're a little over a year into our channel experience here. And, you know, I come from channel, but running my own was a new experience for me. And, you know, for the first 9 months or so, for the first 6 months, we didn't charge at all. It was all you can eat for free. And then we said, okay, we've got to charge something for this. And people, you know, we kept our partners. But at a certain point, we found that as we were growing our success operations, we had partners coming to us saying, yeah, compliance, that sounds good. And they would sign up and they wouldn't really engage. So we do right now have program fees. For $1,000, you get a success team assigned to you for the year. We train you on the platform. We'll help you with webinars with your customers. We'll answer compliance questions if you need that during your sales. We'll help you with collateral, campaigning, you know, email campaigns, you know, reports, brochures, that type of thing. We'll give you some customized support and updating your website, all with the goal of helping you pivot your offering around the compliance sale. How do I get customers to invest in the things I already know I want to sell, but based on because compliance, right? So for that $1,000, that program fee covers you for the year. And then we credit it back to the partner on the basis of, well, how successful are they in actually using our product? And we will, you know, for some of our higher end features, we do have clearly billables, but it's really a low burden to get on board.
Gotcha. Now, as far as obviously the being able to go into that channel program, see what they like, how long would it take for as far as implementation time? I think we've talked about how spreading out through the many months to make sure that we can help an end user kind of go through things. And I'm assuming because with that fee of $1,000 for the year, sounds like obviously you got to kind of go into this, you know, for those that do want to run before they walk, they kind of have to guide themselves a little bit to understand.
Yeah. I mean, so in the first 3 weeks, and we have a 3-week program for onboarding. It's like half an hour of onboarding and training, and then we'll meet with you a few times to really audit your internal practices, pivot your offering around the new sale methodology or improved delivery workflows, and that's just a couple of weeks. Now, actually delivering security improvements to your customers, that can be a big project. It could take, if you're starting at 0 and you're shooting for a high level of security, that could be a 2-year project. Or you could compress it down to 6 months and tear your hair out a little bit, right? And if, you know, so you'll know really quickly if we're a fit, and if we're not, by all means, use some spreadsheets, guys. You know, people come in, they learn the product, we support them in sales, and they're off and they're running. And, you know, first you start with how do I win some sales I wasn't winning before, and some upgrades and some new customers. And then, of course, after you win those, you know, we're really going to support you on service delivery to attract those hundreds of things that need to happen.
So we also give the tools away for free for them, most of the tools in the platform to use internally, Paco, to like basically for your MSP, increase your posture, right? Increase your evidence of like where you are. So if you got a new customer, they're like, whoa, what's your security, right? Like maybe you're going to go for a SOC too.
Right.
And on that same note, CompTIA is using us in the Trustmark program to basically increase the posture of those organizations to achieve a Trustmark as well. So hopefully, you know, some good things cooking in the iron, so in the fire. So
I do want to touch on what you just said, Matthew. I'm a small business owner. I'm busy as all hell. I move multiple things I'm working on. 2 years is way too long, way too much work, it sounds like. So I'm probably gonna be slightly discouraged. So how do I do this effectively and as easy as possible?
So, I mean, first of all, almost no one is going to come to you and with zero security and say, I want to buy everything. right?
Sure.
That almost never happens, but I have seen it. It happens after a breach, right, guys?
Yeah.
Right.
Or if you're at a conference with a lot of drinks, either or, which is also maybe a breach, I guess, in its own way.
So, where we've found a lot of success in security investments, and this comes right down to how small business owners think about that investment is, you're either like chugging along happy with what you got for IT, and you want to know you're secure, and you want assurances that you're secure from your MSP, or you're saying to yourself, actually, I already know I need to invest more because XYZ happened to me and I know that I don't have enough. You as an MSP cannot force your end customer to want to increase by 30% their IT spend, but they will automatically accept a 30% price increase if something's kicking them in the butt, right? If there's regulator pressure, if they really can't get that insurance policy, if they are trying to get a sale across home plate with their customer, but due diligence is hell for them, they'll come to you and they'll say, you know what? Yeah, that 20% upgrade, that 30% upgrade, that sounds like I do need to be on the high security plan. So to make this scalable, we're pretty opinionated that MSPs should be normalizing their offerings around a standard bundle, what you would like to sell normally to customers that care a little bit about security, and then have a standardized offering for customers that care more. And then, you'll get one-off requests for some very specific things you layer on top. But the reality is that 2-year journey doesn't need to be per customer, right? Once you build those competencies and once you've normalized your operations, it's across your whole customer base. So, I mean, that's the best thing an MSP can do to improve efficiency and to make this simpler is to normalize and really go across their whole customer base at the same time.
Yeah, and Paco mentioned those tiers that his MSP has. So, I mean, he's one of our, he's in that top 10% of mature and understanding, like offering that, one size does not fit all for security, right? Like a law firm's not going to have the same security as a catering business or something like that. So.
Right. And being able to understand particular industries and particular size of client. I mean, Matthew, you just said it best. It's like no person going from zero or at a very low adoption is going to go all in because for the sake of it, unless there's a very big painful event that occurs for them or something to cause their behavior to change, then they're going to go all in for sure. But gentlemen, we've been here talking for the past almost 40 minutes here, and it's been nothing but a hoot and a lot of the information that you have shared. Before we kind of round out the episode, because I definitely want to leave that enough for those that are interested to engage, reach out, understand more about Fort Mesa. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you haven't either talked about Fort Mesa or just anything you want to leave with the audience before we kind of round out?
Well, shout out to our friends over at Verizon who have released their annual breach survey. You all can look at the controls that you should probably have in place that are, have been shown to actually result in breaches. Right now, it's the current actual attacks happening, all condensed into a 50-page report or so. And of course, all those recommendations they have in the report are going to map back to controls that we've got on our platform. So there's the plug. But this is based on the actual attacks happening right now.
Roger that. Sean, anything you wanted to add on before we round out the episode here?
Sure. I would say, Matthew, you should provide the link for that Verizon report for everybody. It should be in this episode.
I'll make sure it'll be in the show notes.
Great.
You should push this out on social in general as an education piece. And I'm talking to Tim more so than you because Tim's much better at social now these days. So, I think it's I think it's all of our responsibility to help everybody we can in the way we can. And the nice thing about helping everybody with this actually points them back to you guys, like you said. Anyway, that was like literally your pitch. So that's smart. No, I think you should put that all out there. I think you should start sharing. I think you should start to develop a story around how you guys fit into this.
Yeah, that's been the challenge, Sean. That story and resonating with the MSP that needs to resonate with the customer. So, ultimately,
what a great way to use the word name Verizon. By the way, end users know Verizon,
right?
I don't think we're losing any business to Verizon, guys.
No, right. but they know the name Verizon, though, so you might as well co-brand with that name. Look, there's a company like Verizon that says, "Here's the problems. Here you go." Right? Yep. It's different than saying ConnectWise, is it? Because the end users don't know who we are.
Hey, ConnectWise has got some great data too.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. My point is the end users don't know who the hell ConnectWise is. They know who Verizon is. If you can use a reputable name like Microsoft, Verizon, Hewlett Packard, Dell, whatever, any chance you get, that's great for you guys. You know what I mean? It's great for all of us.
Yeah, it's a great point, Sean. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Gentlemen, it's been a true pleasure to talk to you today. For those that are listening, love what they hear and they want to engage and know more about you all, what's the best way for them to reach out?
FortMesa.com.
Very cool. So you heard that, folks. We'll have those links in the show notes to go ahead and reach out. Tim, Matthew, really appreciate you taking out the time to come out on the show. Sean, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Another one in the bag. We have many more to come. And we appreciate you listening in and tuning in and watching our video podcast for this special series for the summer. Tune in every Wednesday and Thursday to catch more of this series. You can go ahead and watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button so you can be notified whenever a new episode is available. We want to thank you again for watching and see you next time on MSP Unplugged.